All right. Good morning. I'd like to thank you all very much for joining with us today. I really appreciate your time. And again, I'd like to echo, the sentiment that I hope you all are keeping safe, keeping healthy, and in good spirits, given the interesting times that we're currently living in. So today what we're going to do is we're going to cover a session, a thought leadership session on it's not what libraries hold, but who libraries serve. Following this session, I'm going to have Mr. Amit. He's going to give a product demonstration and share with you a little bit about MyLOFT. Now, going through today's session, what I would hope for you to do is not only think about MyLOFT, but also to think about additional technologies, additional services that you implement and that you introduce into your library systems. So today is all about encouraging, challenging, and also to have you rethink your library. So we're going to start off with a quick poll, and this quick poll is going to give you a screen, so you can actually just check here. You should get a pop-up, and the question is: are you satisfied with how your library has been able to deliver content to its patrons through this pandemic? So are you satisfied with how your library has been able to deliver content to its patrons through the pandemic? And this is just to kind of get a little bit of a taste to understand where everybody's at, and just to kind of share some insights with everybody. So I think we currently have roughly 100 people on the call today, so there should be a pretty good response rate. We'll just give it another 5 or 6 more seconds here. All right, so we're going to end this poll, and I'm going to share the results with you. So are you satisfied with how your library has been able to deliver content to its patrons through the pandemic? So 21% of you said not satisfied and it needs major improvement. So hopefully we'll have some different insights for you and some things for you to consider by the time we're done today. Somewhat satisfied, there's room for improvement, about 50% of you, and under extremely satisfied, we were well prepared. I'm happy to report 30% of you said that that's an amazing number. I'm going to run a couple more surveys throughout the session here, but we'll keep those in touch here pretty quick. So I'll give you a very brief overview about Eclat. So Eclat was established in 2013. We are headquartered in Ahmedabad, India. I'm based in beautiful Vancouver, Canada. And as you can see, it's pitch black outside. It's a little bit after 10:30 p.m., but nonetheless, it's great. So Eclat Engineering, we build software and technology to help libraries like yourselves and institutions to be able to deliver their content effectively and seamlessly to their patrons. This is what we specialize in. Our first product, our legacy product, is called Remote Access. Many of you may be familiar with that solution. And our newest product that we're here to talk about today is called MyLOFT, My Library and Fingertips. So what is My Library and Fingertips? Basically, My Library and Fingertips helps libraries like yours facilitate seamless and secure access to library subscribed premium e-resources. Our ecosystem is an app, a web app, and a browser extension, making it easy for your patrons and your users to discover, access, organize, and share personal and professional content. The major shift here is that MyLOFT is built for the user with the user in mind. Traditional platforms, even like our RemoteX platform, is built more or less around the library and the library workflow, that portal. Here, it's really intended to be user-focused, and this is a major shift that today I'm going to challenge you to consider for your institution. Let's run one more poll here very quickly. And this question is, thinking about your library, do you feel that your library is built around the library's workflow or the user's workflow? So thinking about your library, do you feel that your library is built around the library's workflow or the user's workflow? All right, interesting numbers.
Exactly.
It's wonderful. Thank you everybody for your participation on these polls. I hope you find them interesting. We'll also be able to share the results with you at the end of this session. You'll have an option to answer a short survey at the end of the presentation, as well as to engage with a copy of the presentation as well. So I'm going to stop this poll, and we can see that 39% of you have said libraries workflow, and 61% of you believe that it's built around the user's workflow. So today, when we talk about users' workflow, I'm gonna share with you some insights, and hopefully, maybe towards the end of this, you might have a little bit of a shift of opinion or perspective, but ultimately, like I said, today is just really about challenging and encouraging you to think a little bit differently. We're gonna start off with this very bold statement. It's not what libraries hold, but who libraries serve. It's not what libraries hold, but who libraries serve. So if we think about this just for a moment, there is a shift that's been taking place, whereas you would have what we call a outside-in model for the library. That means the library patrons typically, in the past, they would be coming into the library. Now, of course, even pre-COVID, but even now more so with COVID, we see that it's an inside out. So really, it's not about what we hold, but it's who we serve. We have to be the ones reaching out to the patrons. We have to be the ones engaging our users to get them in to use the library services. So it has to be a shift in the way that we deliver content and the way we provide. So it's not about only our content, but now more so than ever, it's about who we serve. And I want you to think about this. This is extremely important. Your patrons are your customers. I spoke at IFLA, it was 2 years ago, and we did a session about customers and patrons. So almost like how libraries would need to see their patrons as if it was almost like a retail outlet. If you don't have users of your library, there's no point to have a library. You don't have a library. So again, we have to be the ones helping our library patrons to discover, to find content. We have to help them to make sure that all that content is available to them when and where they need it. They also libraries need to learn to adjust on how we view these patrons, right? So if you look at how we consume content today and how we use apps, mobile devices, patrons, their needs and their expectations have skyrocketed. We need to be in a position to deliver to our patrons a first-class customer experience. So how do we improve the customer experience? What you want to do is you want to look at how to transform your library from a collection-centric to a people-centric model. Again, as I talked, from an inside out. Given this COVID situation, we also need to look at a mobile-first approach that provides a user-controlled experience. So when I say user-controlled experience, it's not the library dictating, the workflow that has to take place to discover or to access content. It's the user saying, this is how I want to access that content, and to give them that flexibility to engage with the content on their terms. So self-directed discovery. So again, users need to have that flexibility to be able to discover content how they want to. And access is key. So on-demand access, delivery of that content on their fingertips, anywhere, anytime. So we need to make sure that that content is easy to consume. It's accessible, There's very limited roadblocks, and that's so we got to keep it very simple. As users and individuals, not even just library patrons, but for all of ourselves in this digital age, I think we can all agree we are a now people, right? We expect content, not only content, but we can have anything we want now. If I want to order, I want to order some food, I want to order ice cream, whatever it might be. If I want to watch a video, if I want to read a newspaper, I can have that now. There's multiple different apps, multiple different services that will give me that instant gratification of what I need. The same goes for your library. Your library patrons need to have content when they need it or when they want it most. So 24/7. So that delivery and how you deliver that content really matters. It's important to get personal. So you need to be able to build a personal relationship with the user. And how do we do that? One of the major things as far as communication and to build trust is to focus on communication. So beyond building that relationship, it also requires on a personal level that they can customize, they can tailor any of the content, any of the library services to themselves as an individual. Exclusivity. Users need to feel that they're part of an exclusive group. What does that user have that's unique and special to them, that's exclusive? Think about your library. Everybody who's attending here, their library has different services, different products, different resources, and a different approach to content. So your library is unique. Your library is exclusive, as is the personalization of that content. When you put the power in the user's hand where they can customize, they can tailor that content to themselves. That makes it exclusive. And if you want to talk about engagement, it's extremely important. So personalization and customization. Users want to be able to show off the services that they use. So, if I have a really unique product and service, something like, we can say MyLOFT, or we could say, any other platform that's unique to me, that I get extreme value of it, it's exclusive, it's content exactly how I want it, I'm going to be excited about that product. And I'm going to be able to want to show my friends, my colleagues, my associates. So the modern library is digital first, and so should be its platforms. Now, again, I hate using the excuse of COVID, but it's a great opportunity, and we could say a chance, but it's an opportunity for us to change the way we build our library, to change the way we promote our services, the way we change to engage with our patrons. Take this opportunity as a chance to build, improve, and to take your library system to the next level. Earning users' trust. It's really important that libraries and institutions have trust with their relationships. As I mentioned earlier, communication is the key to trust. The technology that you have and that you procure, does that allow you to communicate with your patrons and to engage with patrons? Can you send messages? Can you help promote content? Can you engage them on a personal level, or even as a group? So the more you can communicate with your patrons through multiple platforms and multiple services, the more your patrons are going to trust your library. It's important when you're looking at technology as well to consider personal privacy and security as a priority. And I know in a lot of countries, this is not the utmost of importance. But if you look at things that are taking place in Europe and also North America, things like GDPR, extremely important that privacy and security is a priority. And I would encourage you as library professionals to also make sure that the technology and the platforms and the content you buy, make sure that your users' privacy is taken into account. The last thing you'd want is a researcher or a scholar to feel that their work is being compromised in any way, shape, and form. So get to know your patrons. Again, building trust with your users and understanding who your patrons are, and how do you build personalized services? How do you build content that's relevant to them? There's things you can do. You can run community groups, you can run survey groups. So there's lots of ways you can engage. So you want to know, who are your users? What do they do, or what are they studying? When, where, how do they want to access it? Are they looking to, do they want to access through apps? Do they want to access through web portal? Do they want to access through a tablet or PC? You should be able to understand and know all these different factors. Why do they need it? What are the goals? What are the objectives? What are the tasks that your users wish to achieve? What's the ultimate user experience of your patrons? Have you ever stopped and actually asked, if you could have anything in the library, or if you could access content in any way, shape, or form, what would be that ideal way? And also, you should ask your patrons, what do you like about our product? What do you like about our university? What do you like about our library? Is there anything you dislike about the workflows? What are your frustrations? What are your pain points? When you ask these questions, you take a little bit of time to get to know your patrons, you are going to be able to build and to develop your library services that's ultimately going to be more than a satisfying experience for your patrons. It's going to be exactly what they asked for. So we can talk about some of the barriers. So what are some of the barriers when looking at user uptake of your services? Accessibility may be one, right? So if there's any handicaps that the users have, is your library able to address it? Do they have audio functionality? Is there translation facilities built in? So there's all different types of accessibility layers, and you can also take accessibility based on multi-platform as well. Is there a lack of training and a lack of support? Is the technology too difficult to onboard the user? We like to use this rule, KISS, keep it simple, sweetheart. And it's really about keeping technology, keeping solutions very simplified, very minimal, so that users don't have to go through enormous amounts of training and onboarding to get onto the interface or onto the platform. Do your users have to be tech savvy? What are some of those motivators for your patrons? Having that knowledge at their fingertips, anywhere, anytime, that's huge. Everybody likes to learn at their own pace, and even more so now with all of our users, all of our patrons, many of them accessing from content from home or even remote learning. This gives the flexibility for us to learn at our own pace. Some of us are very visual, some of us like to watch movies, but some of us like to, say, read text, for example. So having technology that allows users to learn at their own pace is extremely critical. And again, I'm going to repeat this, a user-controlled experiences. Nobody likes to be bound by specific workflows. They like to have that flexibility to access and to discover on their own terms. And we'll cover that a little bit deeper in just a moment. So how do we get quick adoption to our interfaces? As I mentioned earlier, keep it simple, sweetheart. So it's the fantastic KISS rule. We don't want to overcomplicate things. We just want to keep things really easy to use. So we ran a survey earlier on this year. We asked our customers and prospects, patrons all around the world, what is the most important factor when making technology available? The number one result was ease of access. And so that goes back to that simple point, keep it simple, sweetheart. We want to keep the technology, we want to keep the platforms and the access as easy as possible. I'm going to give you an example here on the personalization of content. So before joining Eclat, I worked for a company called Press Reader, which was known as Press Display prior to. And back in 2006, when I had joined, we actually launched a product called Library Press Display. And it was a shared user platform. It was sold on a simultaneous user model, and it was built on the library, on the librarian's pick. So what the library chose to be the preferred content. As you can see on the right-hand side, there's Librarians picks. So that was the content that was highlighted. There was the content, of course, for the users to select their own, but there was no personalization features inside of the platform. In 2013, we introduced Press Reader, which was a complete overhaul of the product. It became a personalized library solution where every user was able to create their own account. They were able to create their own subjects, their own topics, their own alerts, their favorite newspapers, and then also get down to the specific subject levels. So they could really customize the content that was relevant to them. Now, going from a shared to a personalized product, what do you think happened? An increase of usage. Increase of usage on not only content consumed, but also on the length of time that users spent on the interface. So this was extremely valuable, not only for the library to keep them inside of the library resources, but also for the publishers that we had worked with. Of course, every publisher loves it when the content is being used, and especially if you're buying services on a site-wide basis or an unlimited access model, it's great to be able to have as much usage as possible. Scalability. Scalability is also extremely important. So how do we scale up our technology? How do we scale the resources that we provide to our patrons? So multi-platform availability. This should be expected first and foremost when you're buying any kind of content or any kind of technology. Does it work on an iPad, or a tablet? Does it work on a mobile device? Does it work on a PC? Extremely critical that you can serve, and that also all that content can sync up. So if you have a personalized solution, multi-platform, does all that content should sync up. So if I'm using it on my phone and I go onto my PC, I should be able to have exactly the same experience and that content. The technology that you provide also needs to look at, does it keep the user in your library's ecosystem as much as possible? One of the great things that I love about MyLOFT is that, we have up top, we have a Google search bar. This Google search bar is good for a number of things, and it goes everything from what we call a browser extension, where it would actually recognize domains that are authenticated, to also being able to have the library app to be able to be used as a personal browser. So the library doesn't always have to be all about professional use. It can also be personal use. So you can actually find and use the library services for personal interests as well, just as you would for professional use. And I think that's a real major value add, because that keeps the user in the library's ecosystem. Next thing I want to talk about is software as a service. So yes, software SaaS offering comes on a subscription model, and it's often referred to as an on-demand software. But the really important thing to note here is that when you're launching technology, when you're launching services for your institution, you don't want to take on additional projects. Projects imply it takes a lot of time, it takes a lot of resources, a lot of manpower, and a lot of know-how, whether it be technical know-how. Something like MyLOFT, as being a product, allows you to facilitate resources, technology to your patrons, deliver that on a lower upfront cost with an extremely fast rollout and implementation. And the most beautiful thing is that if your institution struggles with infrastructure, you don't have to have infrastructure to start. A SaaS offering can be the infrastructure for your institution. So if you don't have your own library portal, something like MyLOFT can be your library portal. Adapt to the user's workflow. I love this because, nowadays there's so many different ways that we want to access, we want to consume content, and every user is unique. So we need to have technology, we need to have services that will adapt to the user's workflow. So do we understand the current pain points, the frustrations, The challenge is, do we understand the workflow of our users? What are those inconsistencies? So in the case of MyLOFT, many of our users, they struggle with inconsistencies with access and e-resources. So it could be multiple logins, could be, and I think we can all relate that, almost every website we go to nowadays, they require a different username and password. We're looking at ways to simplify and to provide a seamless access. And this is what MyLOFT is going to help you deliver. Users didn't have control or flexibility over the desired workflow, and I'll give you an example of that in just a moment. And like I said, we don't need technology to reinvent the wheel. We just need technology to address the pain points, the challenges that we're facing, and make it more seamless and easy to use. So we're going to run one more poll here just to make sure I have all of your attention. What is the most common way for your users to discover library resources? So I'm just going to pull up the poll in here. All right, we're going to launch poll. So what is the most common way for your users to discover library resources? And we'll just leave this here for a quick moment.
Getting good responses.
Yes. Thank you again, everybody, for all your participation. All right, we'll give you 5 more seconds here. This is wonderful, wonderful results. So I'm going to share these results with everybody. So what is the most common way for your users to discover library resources? 50% of you said direct from the library website. 24% of you said library discovery tools. So for example, maybe like your EDS, Primo, Summons, for example, and 26% of you have said through Google, through maybe a custom search or Google Scholar, for example. It's a very good response. Thank you for your participation on that. Now I want to share with you, this is about adapting to the user's workflows. I mentioned every user is unique. Every user has a different way that they want to consume content. Extremely important to recognize that. Now, if you look on the right-hand side of this graph, you see there's a graph, a chart here from an Ohio Link white paper. And you can see about 50% of library discovery actually happens through Google. And then you also have direct from the library's website. And then you also have other sources under the library discovery. So that's like your EBSCO discovery, Primo, Summons, etc. Now, one of the most beautiful things is that what we try to do is that we do not want to control the workflow of the patron. We want to give them the flexibility to engage with content on their terms. So many students and many patrons, researchers, they may just want to go through Google. They might just say, you know what, I want to just do a Google search. Now, the nice thing about Google and having, as I mentioned, having this extension is that it has a browser extension. So it will also recognize domains that your institution is subscribed to. Some users, students, patrons, they may want to go through a discovery platform, right? So you might say, I know I want to go through an EBSCO discovery, I want to go through a Primo, Summons, whatever it might be, they have that option. But also you might have those users who just say, you know what, I know exactly which publisher I want to go to. I want to go to Springer, I want to go to Elsevier, whatever that might be. I just click on the e-resources tab and I go straight to that publisher. So here, now you're not controlling the way that the patron discovers with content. You're giving that control, you're shifting that control from the library into the user's perspective, into the user's control. So they can control what model of discovery suits best for them. And this is extremely important for user engagement and uptake of services. We'll talk about the browser extension for a moment, because I think this is one of the major highlights of MyLOFT. And as we do have an inbuilt proxy, inbuilt transparent proxy into the MyLOFT platform, as I mentioned, we do recognize the domains that are authenticated. So you might do a keyword search on Google and you say biomedical. And you can see in this example that ACS comes up as a result under Google. And there's a MyLOFT logo here. So this actually shows the user that this website, that this domain is a premium domain that the library subscribes to. So if they click on that link, they're going to have full access to that content. The same goes that by having that browser extension active, if I was just to go and type JSTOR, for example, and my institution has a subscription to JSTOR or Elsevier, Jove, whatever it might be, I just type in that platform and it will automatically authenticate me. So there's no extra need to sign in. It cuts out multiple steps in the user's workflow, making it simple and seamless for the users. And if you're looking at user engagement, it's extremely important to simplify that process. The last thing I just want to focus on really quick is measurable results. Now, when we talk about technology, or when we talk about understanding the user and to have that user engagement, we want to understand the technology that they're using, right? So, of course, most analytics, they're going to tell you what journals have been accessed, how many users, perhaps even how much time was spent on the platform, maybe the amount of data. But do they give you platform reports? Do they tell you how many users are using on mobile, or how many people are using on PC? How many people are using on Android or iOS? This is extremely important information to gather on your analytics. If you can understand exactly what platforms users are using, like I said, whether it be PC, tablet, Android, iOS, this is going to give you some important information on to make sure that when you procure content, you procure technology, to make sure that it's optimized for those platforms first and foremost. Lastly, user retention. Are you able to see the user retention or the continuation of the users on your services? Extremely important, because if you see that there's a drop off in users, is there a way, again, to communicate, to engage with those users, to raise the level of engagement and participation into your library? Once you can see the retention, you're able to engage. That's going to allow you to have a stronger return on investment on the e-resources and the technologies that you procure for your institution. So I hope this was quite insightful for you. I hope it's encouraging and challenging. I hope it also gives you some opportunities to reconsider your library, to reconsider how you deliver content, and really ultimately how you see your users. So as I mentioned, patrons are your customers. You need to look at how you can earn your users' trust, understand your patrons, get to know them. How can you have that quick adoption? Scalability, how you can adjust and adapt to the user's workflow, and how you can get measurable results. So I'm going to invite Amit to share with us, and he's going to show you a little bit of MyLOFT. MyLOFT, we focus on 4 critical elements. One is discover the content. Second is to access that content. Third is to organize and to share and to put that content into the desired workflow of those individual users. So again, I'd like to thank you very much for joining today. Amit's going to take it over with a product demo of MyLOFT. And again, my name is Mark Ritchie. And if there's an opportunity for us to connect, it would be my utmost pleasure and interest to connect with you. So thank you very much.